$10.2 million. That's the average salary for today's NBA player. How much do you think the largest contracts are worth compared to that? 3 times, 4 times as much? Sports superstars are always looking to get paid what they're worth, but the amount of money involved in paying today's best NBA players is truly staggering. In today's video, we're taking a look at the top 5 largest contracts in NBA history, how they happened, and what it means for the league in the future. Hope you're ready to crunch some numbers because the NBA's biggest bags are going to blow your mind. Giannis Antetokounmpo is a household name in today's NBA. The 6'11" power forward out of Athens is an 8-time All-Star and an NBA champion. But when he signed the 5th largest contract in NBA history in 2020, he was still searching for his first title. The Bucks were also gunning for their first championship in almost 50 years. They hadn't raised the Larry O'Brien Trophy since 1971, and the man who led them to it, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, soon demanded a trade. The Bucks didn't want the same thing to happen to Giannis, and the front office showed they were willing to do anything to convince him to stay, including shelling out the big bucks. The Greek Freak's contract was for 5 years, from 2021 to 2026, and worth an eye-popping $228 million. This comes out to roughly $45 million per year, or just over $550,000 per game. This ranks as the 45th biggest sports contract in history. And Milwaukee Brass just didn't give Giannis his bag, but they also made several moves to build a championship contender around him. They traded away veteran guards Eric Bledsoe and George Hill, as well as 3 first-round picks. This helped them land Drew Holiday, a guard who is a 2-time All-Star and a monster on the defensive side of the floor. The Bucks also completely overhauled their bench as well, and they did this before Giannis had indicated whether he was going to stay. But the moves worked. The Greek Freak decided to stay in the 4-1-4 and led the Bucks to their second NBA Finals appearance the year after he signed his extension with the team. Not only that, but he helped lift championship gold for the first time in 50 years when they defeated the Phoenix Suns in 6 games to win the 2021 NBA Finals.
The Bucks have done it. The long wait has ended. After a half century, the Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions once again.
Time will tell if the Greek Freak can bring Milwaukee another title before his current deal runs out. But for Bucks fans and their front office, it's certainly been worth every penny. But for the next team on our list, they might still be regretting an even bigger contract. If their last massive contract was worth every penny, this one is probably the exact opposite. The Wizards thought they were locking down Bradley Beal for the rest of his career when they signed the veteran shooting guard to a 5-year deal in 2022 worth $251 million. This comes out to just over $50 million a year and $612,000 per game. It checks in at number 36 all-time and the 4th largest in NBA history. Bradley Beal played for the Washington Wizards from 2012 to 2023. He's been a solid shooter throughout his career and has been an All-Star 3 times. But less than a year into his new contract, Beal requested a trade out of Washington. He was one of the league's most talented guards and felt that the Wizards were not going anywhere meaningful. While Beal was part of several Wizards playoff teams when he was still in DC, the team never won more than 49 games in a season and were bounced in the first round of the playoffs 5 times in a row. Beal wanted out, and he eventually got his wish. Washington found a trade partner who was willing to eat Beal's huge contract. Phoenix took him off of Washington's hands. As a part of the deal, the Suns also sent the Wizards 4 first-round picks, 6 second-round picks, Landry Shamet, and Chris Paul. Even though Washington's front office is happy to start fresh, this trade definitely hurt their pocketbook. Trading away Beal essentially made one of the largest contracts in NBA history completely worthless. Not only did the Wizards invest an enormous amount of money into a player who's no longer with them, but they are also now committed to tanking and a full rebuild for the foreseeable future with Jordan Poole and other young players. The 3rd biggest contract in NBA history turned out to be worth every penny, just like number 5 on the list, but it wasn't always sunshine and roses. Denver was going through a lot of uncertain times before they inked Nikola Jokic to his current contract. Tim Connolly, the GM who built most of the current Nuggets team, left to turn around the Minnesota Timberwolves. The GM who replaced him, Calvin Booth, traded for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Ish Smith, and Peyton Watson. He also snagged a future first-round pick and 2 second-round picks. The roster was being shuffled and reformed. But after Denver was happy with the current roster in the 2022 offseason, they decided to make a splash, a huge splash. Nikola Jokic is one of a kind. He's got the body of a center, the strength of a power forward, and the touch and shooting ability of a guard. His basketball IQ is off the charts too. Denver saw what they had in him, so they decided to bank on their big man by signing him to a 5-year deal worth $264 million. This comes out to just under $53 million a year and $643,000 per game. Like the Greek Freak earlier on this list, this contract turned out to be more than worth the price the Nuggets paid. Jokic not only led Denver to their first NBA Finals appearance ever, but they also managed to win the title in 5 games over the Miami Heat in the 2023 NBA Finals. Miami was on a remarkable run during the season. They won the East as the number 8 seed with upset victories over top-seeded Milwaukee, number 4 New York, and the 2-seed Boston Celtics. But Cinderella's slipper didn't quite fit when the Heat ran into Jokic and the Nuggets. The Nuggets were a buzzsaw. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray led the way as Denver's two-headed monster, and the supporting cast was just too deep for the Heat to compete with, and Miami went down easily. In many big-time sports leagues, teams often overpay for their best players, but sometimes it must be done, especially for teams who are seriously trying to compete for and win a championship. One could argue that Denver's 2023 championship would have never happened if the Nuggets hadn't inked their 3-time MVP to his Supermax deal. As for the next contract on this list, it represents a key part of the first Boston core to win a championship since 2008. Even by today's standards, the second biggest contract on this list is absolutely massive. In the 2023 offseason, before Boston made their run to Banner 18, they decided to shell out the big bucks. They inked their star swingman Jaylen Brown to a 5-year deal worth a mind-blowing $303 million. That comes out to over $60 million per year and over $740,000 per game. The contract is 100% guaranteed money for Brown, which means only one thing: the Celtics are planning to keep him in Boston for as long as they possibly can. Not only that, but very few teams, if any, would even approach the Celtics if Brown decided to leave at any point before 2029. Boston's championship window is still open even after winning the NBA title this past season, but it's unlikely that Brown and Tatum will both remain in Boston for the entire length of their deals. But going into 2023, owner Wyc Grousbeck and general manager Brad Stevens wanted to reward Brown for his big season the year before. He was a key piece of the team that won the East and went to the finals. Brown had career years when it came to shooting percentage and points per game, as he averaged 49% from the floor and dropped nearly 27 a night as one of Boston's leading scorers. Brown didn't average as many points during Boston's championship season. His scoring dipped to 23 points per game, but he still kept his impressive shooting streak as he hit an even 50% on his shots from the floor. And when the playoffs came, Brown got only better and better as time went on. People questioned if Boston could carry momentum over from the regular season, but both Brown and Tatum answered the call. They even passed Larry Bird and Kevin McHale for the most 25-point playoff games by a Celtics duo in postseason history with 18. Brown was even named MVP for both the Eastern Conference Finals and NBA Finals. And when you consider that he was the main defender that Joe Mazzulla put on Luka Doncic, it makes this 2023 season even more impressive. Brown is such a well-rounded player that it's hard to pinpoint his greatest strength. Explosive scorer? Check. Great shooter? Check. Suffocating defense? Check. He's so versatile that the Celtics can use him in practically any situation. And he's 27 years old, which means he's currently in his prime as a basketball player. Boston's ownership likely knows they can't afford to keep both Brown and Tatum long term. They're both signed to Supermax deals, which is why they're trying to strike now while the iron is hot. They've won one title already, which means everything already is a success. The scary thing for the rest of the NBA? Pressure's off. The Celtics know they can win the whole thing, and they've got the formula to do it multiple times over the next few years. The biggest ingredient in that championship formula? I'll give you some clues. He wears number 0, and he's got the biggest contract in NBA history. After 7 years of working for it, all of Jason Tatum's blood, sweat, and tears have finally paid off. Not only is he finally an NBA champion, he's an extremely rich man. After leading the C's to their tie-breaking 18th title, Boston decided to reward him. This is no run-of-the-mill contract extension. The amount of money involved here is enough to make your head spin. This deal is so enormous that it even breaks into the top 20 for the richest contracts in sports history. Tatum's deal can be mentioned in the same breath as the world's richest baseball, soccer, and Formula One contracts. You can try and brace yourself for this, but let's face it, you're not ready. On July 1, less than a month after winning the NBA championship, Tatum inked a deal worth $314 million over 5 years. When we crunch the numbers, that comes out to nearly $63 million a year and over $765,000 per game. Some people would say that no athlete deserves that much money, but the NBA is a massive business. Teams will pay superstars their market value. But if you followed what Tatum has had to go through for his entire career, it would be hard to argue he hasn't earned his contract extension. Early on in his career, Tatum was seen as the leader for Boston's young core, but Jason often had to take a lot of hate from people who said he was overrated, especially when Boston would routinely lose in the playoffs. Being bounced by Miami in 2023 was the low point. But the Celtics found their mojo, won 64 games this past season, and steamrolled through the playoffs. Boston only lost 3 games during their entire playoff run. A big reason they were successful was because the pressure was off Tatum. Brown was the most explosive scoring threat for the Celtics. This let Tatum move around freely. Jason could now focus on his biggest strengths: rebounding, creating shots for his teammates, and shutting down key players on defense. The scary thing for teams that faced the Celtics is that Tatum would often score in bunches with Brown. In the clinching game of the NBA Finals against the Mavs, Jason nearly had a triple-double. He scored 31 points, snagged 11 rebounds, and dished out 8 assists. Tatum would also become the 6th player in history to lead his team in points, rebounds, and assists during a championship season. He's in some elite company. The other 5 players to lead their teams were Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Larry Bird. Boston is stuck with Tatum ever since he was drafted 3rd overall 7 years ago. And now that the team's patience has paid off, they're happy to pay their superstar whatever he wants. But once they come down from winning the title, Boston has a decision to make. They won't be able to afford both Tatum and Brown, even with the new luxury tax and a higher salary cap, which leads to a question. Remember when the league's salary cap boomed in 2016? The upcoming surge could make that look like chump change. The NBA locked down 3 huge TV deals with Disney, NBC, and Amazon that will generate as much as an extra $76 billion over the next 11 years. If the players get close to half of that money thanks to the new CBA, each team could get close to $115 million in extra money to boost their salary cap. This would mean that teams could pay their superstars even bigger contracts in the future. Jason Tatum's massive deal is currently the biggest in league history, but current trends say it probably won't be for long. Do you think we'll ever see a $400 million contract in the NBA? Who would get it? Let me know in the comments below, and feel free to check out our other videos like this one. And as always, smash the like and subscribe button to see more great content. Thanks for watching.